On Friday, they fired Henry Locke, humiliated him, erased his name, and sent him home with nothing. But by Monday morning, the same man they destroyed walked back into the building, not as an employee, but as the man who owned the entire company. He didn't come for revenge. He came to take back everything that was stolen. The fluorescent lights in the office hummed like they always did, cold, steady, indifferent. Henry Locke sat at his desk, typing the final lines of a quarterly report he'd been perfecting for weeks. The sun had already set, and most of his team had gone home. But Henry stayed. He always did. For 12 years, he had built everything inside Brand Enterprises: the systems, the workflow, the trust. He wasn't just another operations director. He was the reason the company ran smoothly at all. But loyalty, he would soon learn, doesn't always guarantee safety. At 7:46 p.m., his phone buzzed. Victor Brandt. Incoming call. His boss's name on the screen made his stomach tighten. Victor never called this late, unless it was about something serious. Victor, over phone. Henry, can you step into my office? Now. Henry straightened his tie, took a deep breath, and walked down the long glass hallway toward the CEO's office, the same one he'd helped design years ago. When he entered, Victor was sitting behind his desk, staring at a sleek folder. Beside him sat Lila Bennett from HR, eyes lowered, avoiding Henry's gaze. That was the first red flag. Henry, you wanted to see me? Victor, without looking up, yes. Sit down. The silence stretched too long. Henry's heart started to pound. Then Victor finally looked up, his smile thin, rehearsed. Victor, let me get straight to it. The board decided to make some structural changes. Your position is being terminated, effective immediately. Henry blinked, stunned. Henry, terminated? For what reason? Victor, nothing personal, just business. We're streamlining operations, downsizing the leadership tier. It wasn't true. Henry knew it. He'd just closed the company's biggest logistics deal last week, one Victor had publicly taken credit for. Lila shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She looked like she wanted to speak, but didn't dare. Henry, you're replacing me with someone cheaper, aren't you? Victor smirked. Victor, someone younger, more dynamic. Henry stood, disbelief turning to calm anger. Henry, after everything I've done for this company. Victor, exactly, Victor cut him off. You've done your part. Time for new blood. The guard waiting outside stepped in as Lila slid a termination letter across the desk. It felt surreal. The humiliation, the quiet betrayal. Henry picked up the letter, folded it neatly, and said only one thing before walking out. Henry, you'll regret this, Victor. Maybe not today, but you will. That night, Henry sat in his car for a long time. The city lights blurred through his windshield as rain began to fall. He wasn't angry, not yet. He was hollow, the kind of emptiness that comes when you've given your whole life to something that never cared for you back. He thought of all the late nights, the sacrifices, the loyalty, all erased with a signature. Then his phone buzzed again. A message. Unknown number. Text. I heard what happened. Meet me tomorrow at 9. Same cafe as before. Claire. Henry exhaled slowly. Claire Whitmore. A name from the past. A former investor he'd met years ago, sharp-minded and fearless. He didn't know it yet, but that message would change everything. The next morning, Henry arrived at the cafe, small, quiet, tucked into a corner of downtown. Claire was already there, sipping her coffee, tablet in hand. She smiled faintly when she saw him. Claire, you look like hell. Henry, dryly, you always did know how to comfort people. She chuckled softly. Then her expression turned serious. Claire, I heard about Victor. He's ambitious, but reckless. He's been trying to push you out for months. Henry frowned. Henry, you knew? Claire, not for sure, but I've been watching his numbers. The company's in trouble. He's hiding losses under fake revenue reports. Henry leaned forward, shocked. Henry, that's fraud. Claire, exactly. And that's why I called you. My firm is planning to acquire controlling shares of Brand Enterprises. But I need someone on the inside who knows how it really works. Someone like you. The air felt heavy with possibility. Henry, you want me to help you buy the company that just fired me? Claire, no, she said with a small smile. I want you to own it. Henry sat back, stunned. For the first time since that humiliating Friday, he felt something he hadn't felt in days: control. Claire slid a folder across the table. Inside were acquisition documents, financial statements, and a proposal with his name on it. "Claire, you help me expose Victor's lies. I'll help you take what's rightfully yours." Henry looked at the papers, then at her. "Henry, you're serious about this?" "Claire, dead serious. You were loyal, Henry. Now it's time to be smart." He smiled slowly, not out of arrogance, but clarity. "Henry, then let's begin." That night, Henry returned home and opened his old company laptop. He had access to files no one knew about, encrypted backups of the financial system he'd built himself. He began piecing together evidence, transaction trails, hidden accounts, and falsified invoices that pointed directly to Victor Brandt. The deeper he went, the clearer it became. Victor hadn't just betrayed him. He'd been betraying the entire company. Henry didn't know how this would end, but he knew one thing for sure. By Monday morning, the tables would turn. And this time, he'd be the one holding the power. The night was silent except for the faint tapping of keys. Henry Locke sat in his dimly lit apartment, eyes locked on the glowing laptop screen. Lines of numbers, invoices, and statements blurred together, but he saw the truth buried in the chaos. Victor Brandt had been cooking the books for months. He diverted funds from operational budgets into shell accounts, covered losses with fake supplier invoices, and signed off bonuses that never existed. Henry's hands trembled slightly as he pieced it all together. Every document, every email, it all pointed back to one man. Victor had built a tower of lies, and Henry was about to bring it crashing down. By morning, the evidence was complete. Henry packed the files, drove to Claire Whitmore's downtown office, and walked into a world that smelled of wealth and quiet power. Claire greeted him with her usual calm confidence, black suit, tablet in hand, expression sharp. "Claire, you look like you didn't sleep." "Henry, didn't need to. I found what we need." He handed her a folder. She opened it, eyes scanning each page, lips curling into a faint smile. "Claire, you've been busy." "Henry, I've been betrayed." She nodded slowly. "Claire, good. Betrayal fuels focus." She turned her tablet toward him, showing a digital model of the company's stock structure. "Claire, we already own 28% of Brandt Enterprises through private funds. If we can secure another 35%, we'll have majority control." "Henry, and Victor?" "Claire, he'll never see it coming. He thinks the shares are scattered across small investors. What he doesn't know is they've all been quietly merging under our fund." Henry exhaled. The plan was daring, almost unbelievable. He'd gone from being fired to helping orchestrate a corporate takeover in less than 72 hours. "Henry, you're sure this will work?" "Claire, only if you walk back into that building on Monday like you never left." He frowned. "Henry, Victor will have me removed the second he sees me." Claire smirked. "Claire, not if you're there as a representative of the new majority shareholder." For the next 2 days, Henry and Claire worked in silence, side by side. They contacted board members, gathered signatures, and finalized the legal filings. Every step tightened the noose around Victor's empire. Lila Bennett, the HR officer who had witnessed Henry's firing, called him secretly. Her voice was soft but determined. "Lila, Henry, I think you should know something. Victor's been telling everyone you leaked client data. He's trying to bury your reputation." Henry clenched his jaw. "Henry, let him try. By Monday, the truth will bury him." Sunday night, the city outside glowed under a pale moon. Henry stood by his window, looking down at the world that had once ignored him. He thought about the years he'd spent in that office, the missed birthdays, the long nights, the sacrifices. He'd been loyal to a man who saw him as disposable. Now, he was reclaiming his dignity, not through anger, but through precision. Claire's voice echoed in his head. "Revenge doesn't need to be loud, Henry. It just needs to be final." Monday morning, the air was crisp, charged with tension. Henry adjusted his tie and stepped out of the black car that stopped in front of Brandt Enterprises. The same guard who had escorted him out on Friday now opened the door in confusion. "Guard, Mr. Locke? You're back." Henry, calmly, just following orders. Inside, whispers spread through the office like wildfire. Employees froze mid-conversation, eyes wide. "Isn't that Henry Locke? Didn't Victor fire him? What's he doing here?" He walked straight to the elevator. The same hallway, the same cold lights. But this time, he wasn't walking toward humiliation. He was walking toward justice. Victor Brandt was in the boardroom, giving a presentation to the directors. His tone was smug, his words dripping with confidence. "Victor, now, as you can see, our restructuring has already improved efficiency by 12%. The door opened. Henry stepped in. Silence. Every head turned. Victor froze mid-sentence, color draining from his face. "Victor, you've got to be kidding me." Henry, calmly, "Good morning, Victor." "Victor, security." Before he could finish, Claire Whitmore entered behind Henry, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She placed a folder on the table. "Claire, no need for security, Mr. Brandt. As of this morning, the board has voted to transfer controlling interest to my investment group." The directors murmured, stunned. "Victor, what are you talking about?" "Claire, you're standing in front of your new majority owners." Victor's eyes darted between them, disbelief turning to panic. "Victor, this is impossible." Henry took a step forward, sliding a document toward him. "Henry, oh, it's very possible. Here's the breakdown. Every falsified report you signed, every diverted account, every lie. We found them all." Victor snatched the papers, scanning them frantically. His voice cracked. "Victor, you can't prove." "Henry, I don't need to prove it. The board already has." The silence that followed was heavy, final. Victor's hands trembled. His empire, his pride, was slipping away. Claire turned to the board members. "Claire, effective immediately, Henry Locke will assume interim control of operations until a new CEO is appointed." Victor stared at Henry, eyes burning. "Victor, you think you've won?" Henry met his gaze with calm steel. "Henry, no, Victor. I didn't win. You just lost what you never deserved." As Victor was escorted out, the employees outside stared in stunned silence. Some whispered. Some smiled quietly. Henry didn't gloat. He didn't need to. He walked to the same office he'd once been fired from. Now empty, quiet his. He placed his hand on the desk, exhaled deeply, and whispered to himself. "Friday, I walked out with nothing. Monday, I walked back in with everything." The office was unusually silent that Monday afternoon. News of Victor Brandt's removal spread faster than wildfire. Some called it karma. Others whispered it was poetic justice. But to Henry Locke, it wasn't revenge. It was balanced, finally restored. He stood by the glass window of his new office, watching the city breathe beneath him. The skyline looked different now. Not because it had changed, but because he had. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Hours later, Lila Bennett knocked gently on his door. "Lila, it's done. Victor's been escorted out. The board approved your control until Claire appoints a new CEO." Henry turned and smiled faintly. "Henry, thank you, Lila, for everything." She hesitated before speaking again. "Lila, he told everyone you leaked company data. People believed it for a while." Henry nodded. "Henry, let them. Truth always outlives lies." She smiled softly, nodded, and left. By evening, Claire Whitmore walked in, calm as ever, her presence commanding yet composed. She handed Henry a document. "Claire, the press will be here tomorrow morning. We're going public with the acquisition and Victor's fraud." Henry studied the papers. "Henry, you're sure you want to expose everything?" "Claire, I don't build empires on secrets, Henry. And neither should you." He looked at her, thoughtful. "Henry, you're right. People deserve the truth." That night, Henry sat alone in the office. The lights of downtown shimmered like stars reflected on glass. He thought about his first day here, 12 years ago, a hopeful young man who believed that loyalty was everything. But time had taught him something deeper. Loyalty without respect is slavery. He looked at the company's logo on the wall and whispered quietly, "You took my dignity, Victor, but you gave me something stronger, purpose. He picked up his phone and made a call. Henry, Claire sent it out. Everything. The reports, the statements, all of it. The next morning, headlines flooded the business world. Victor Brandt under investigation for financial fraud. New leadership takes control of Brandt Enterprises. Fire director returns as majority owner. Henry's name was everywhere. Investors praised the transparency. Employees flooded his inbox with messages of support. For the first time, people saw the truth behind the quiet man they had underestimated. Around noon, as Henry walked through the lobby, a familiar voice called out behind him. He turned, and there stood Victor Brandt. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes sunken. Security had already revoked his access, but somehow he'd managed to slip past. Victor, you ruined me. Henry, no, Victor. You did that yourself. Victor stepped closer, bitterness dripping from his voice. Victor, you think this makes you better than me? Henry didn't flinch. Henry, no. It makes me wiser. Victor scoffed, shaking his head. Victor, you were nothing without me. Henry smiled faintly, not in pride, but in truth. Henry, I was everything before you ever noticed. Security appeared moments later and escorted Victor out for the final time. Henry watched quietly as the man who once ruled with arrogance disappeared through the same glass doors he'd made others fear. Later that week, Claire and Henry sat together in the same cafe where it all began. She raised her coffee cup. Claire, to justice. Henry clinked his cup gently against hers. Henry, to peace. She smiled. Claire, you know, Henry, I could make this permanent. You have a respect of everyone here. You could stay on as CEO. He shook his head slowly. Henry, I don't want power. I just wanted the truth to win. Claire, then you already have. As the sun set outside, Henry walked out of the cafe and paused at the corner. Life had come full circle, from betrayal to redemption, from silence to victory. He wasn't the man who begged for fairness anymore. He was the man who built his own justice. Narrator, voiceover, closing scene. They fired him on Friday, humiliated him in front of everyone. But on Monday, he returned, not for revenge, but for redemption. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is owning the place that once broke you. Soft piano music fades in. The screen darkens as text appears. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, and perfectly timed.